In the UK's longest-running pageant, the title of Miss Great Britain Publicity for 2021-22 went to Elle Seline, who made history as the first winner to proudly be makeup-free. A mental health worker who lives in London, Elle is redrawing the lines of pageant perfection with her normalized curves and natural complexion.
Elle, if you are like me, which I believe that you are probably asked this all the time. What are you? Being of mixed heritage, this is a very common question. So let's get right into it. Let's hear it. What ethnicities are you, and why did being mixed make it hard growing up?
So I'm a little bit of everything. I'm Romanian, I'm Greek and British as well. I grew up on a Greek island, which is called Skiathos. For those who don't know, it's Mamma Mia Island. And growing up on the island actually was quite easy because it's a tourist island. There was a lot of people from different cultures, different heritages, and actually it was all good. There was a lot of tourists that came in. There was a lot of kids as well in my school who were also mixed. So that part was all good. When I was 10, I came to the UK to go to boarding school. And that is kind of where everything didn't go according to plan. So it was a very sheltered school outside of London. It was quite far from London. So London being a very cultured place in the UK, this was the opposite. This was like a country lane was everywhere, you know, to get through the whole town. And for me, coming from a little Greek island to that was also a big culture shock, but also for them, it was a big culture shock. And I was there at quite a young age. So I was still very young. I wasn't even a teenager yet. I was still before preteen. And coming into that culture and coming into that world was really hard for me because I am a little bit darker. I do have olive skin and I have hairier arms. I have a facial hair, you know, it happens, you know, and when you're younger, you shouldn't need to, but do you know what I mean? You don't do the maintenance that you might do when you're an adult. And nobody ever had really pointed anything out because you just didn't when you were in Greece because everyone looked the same kind of thing. You know, we were all tanned because we'd been to the beach and it was just a thing. And then the kids in my senior school in the UK didn't really understand me, where I was coming from. And I'm quite a quirky person anyway. And when I was younger, I was even more quirky. And that was kind of a target. I kind of had this target here on my head. And I in turn acted out in class and towards some of my peers because I didn't fit in and it was scary. I didn't have my family with me either. I was there. My brother was in the school as well, but he was too cool to hang out with me. But
as brothers are.
Exactly. And I kind of like, you know, it was scary. It was a scary time. It was. And it was a culture shock for me, even the weather, like it was cold. But yeah, it was a big culture shock coming from Greece to there, and like I said, for them to see me. And back then there wasn't that discussion at an early time for kids to understand about different cultures. So instead of asking questions about my heritage and who I was, it was just, this is a good target, this person's vulnerable, let's go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you know, so let's go a little bit deeper here, you know, and because sharing is caring, do you care to share a story about hair? And I really did not mean for that to rhyme the way that it did, but such as it is. For those of us women who do have more hair on our bodies than others, means that mean things can be said, to your point, especially when you're younger, when you're a girl growing up. So love for you to share a story about maybe something that you heard growing up and how you reacted, what you did as a result.
Sure. So growing up in school, I was called gorilla quite a lot, and she looks like a man because I had a little bit of facial hair on my lip, and I still do have quite hairy arms. And it was scary because, again, I was by myself, and being a young person is hard enough as it is. And then being a young person who doesn't fit in is like tenfold because you're constantly trying to fit that status quo and to fit society, especially as a young person, because you're so lost and you don't really know who you are when you're that age, when you're 10, 11. And I, as a result, shaved my arms. I plucked my eyebrows. I'm so glad that they grew back because I really, honestly, it was like they were just gone, really. And I put foundation on that was a little bit lighter than my skin complexion to try and mold and fit in to what in that time was popular and cool, because it was scary, and I was afraid, to be honest, to not fit in, because I just wanted to blend in, to be invisible, because standing out wasn't good, it wasn't positive at that time. And I remember on a swimming trip, we went to like a theme park and water park, and one of the boys commented on my back, I was wearing like this kind of like this sports swimming costume, and it had, the ones with like the holes in the back, and it kind of I was wearing one of those. And at the time I remember feeling really confident as well, and this guy was like, oh, she's got such a hairy back. And I remember grabbing my t-shirt, this big t-shirt that I had with me on the day, and just putting it on. And even when I went in the pool, I kept the t-shirt on, because I was so it took me back. And even thinking about it now, I'm back in that place kind of thing, where I'm just like, I was quite shocked that he kind of shouted it out really loudly, and, oh, she's got a hairy back, oh my God, like the gorilla. And it was crap. It was crap. And those words came with me into adulthood. Like, even sometimes, even now, I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, I've got a bit of a hair there. And those words that those kids told me, they're ringing. And I have to remind myself that I'm in 2022, that this is a societal issue. It's not my issue. My body hair, wherever it is beautiful. And it is, again, my choice if I want it there or not. As a woman, I should be able to choose. I think we have this thing in our heads in society, even now, where having no body hair is very feminine, and having just anything is manly. And it takes me back to that playground sort of mentality of, oh, it's just let women do what they want with their bodies, man.
Yeah. Just let them do what they want.
Just let us do what we want. Like, we have enough grief as it is as a woman. Like, this is our temple, this is us, this is ours. Like, let us just do what we want with it.
Right. Let us rock our temple the way that we will, and this is the way it should be, right? So
Exactly.
it's so here's the thing. From being bullied and picked on, you became a pageant contestant and finished in the top 5. So I've never been in a pageant, and for others who haven't either, what is the best part of competing in something like this, and what is the worst?
So for me personally, the best part was meeting the other women. There was lots of different shapes and sizes, which was really refreshing to see and really empowering, and listening to their stories. We all had a different reason why we were there, and we all had a different reason why we were using that platform to tell our story and to help other people. Every woman that was there had her own traumas, and she was there, standing there unapologetically, being herself and telling the world who she was. And it was so empowering. It was amazing. Least favorite thing about being in the pageant was the high heels that I wasn't forced to wear them, but I wanted to challenge myself, like Miss Congeniality style. I was like, I'm going to walk in heels, because normally I wear flats or like flip-flops, and I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to challenge myself and walk. I think I just felt really elegant wearing heels. I didn't fall over, but I had to really practice beforehand.
Right. Well, good for not falling over, and practice makes perfect, or whatever perfect means. So let's talk filters. So, before the filters that are provided by Instagram and Snapchat, Maybelline, CoverGirl, they offered filters of their own in the form of makeup.
Yeah.
So after so many years of wearing it, like a mask perhaps, what made you realize that you didn't need it or want it anymore?
For me, it was during lockdown. There's a lot of pressure, I believe, for women to glow up and show up and be there. And when you think of a woman getting dressed and ready to go out, you think she's doing her hair, she's putting her makeup on. There's that almost that kind of like straight away you think of that. And with men, you don't. And during lockdown, all that pressure kind of just fizzled away. There was a lot of people that were in lockdown, every country, we were all in lockdown. And that pressure to glow up, show up and go somewhere actually went away. The only places we were allowed to go were the shops or the chemist. And you were wearing masks a lot. So going into the shop, I didn't need to, slowly I realized actually I had the mask on. All you could see was my eyes. And it helped me. Funnily enough, ironically, a mask helped me remove my own mask. It sounds boom. And honestly, like, I'm going deep now, but for real, like, it really did. And going, and just going to the supermarket and stuff, I realized actually I don't need to rely on people's people's view of me. Like I used to rely so much on people's validation of people's validation of my existence relied on their validation. My existence relied on what people thought of me a lot. And it probably does come from being bullied in school and having various different experiences in my life not being included. And that did, again, like I said, it came into adulthood with me, and I was wearing makeup to hide behind something. I was wearing it because I felt like that's what other people wanted from me, and I was wearing it because I thought if I looked a certain way in a certain style, I would be liked more. And in turn, I wasn't really happy with myself, really, and I was keeping really busy. Before lockdown, I was always keeping busy and saying yes to everything to distract myself from all my trauma and everything that I was going through. That I used a lot of other things as well to escape reality when I was younger, and being busy was almost like an addiction to me, especially just before the lockdown. And then straight when I was in lockdown, I was like, oh my God, like I have to sit with my own thoughts now. I can't escape them. And you know what? At the time it was quite scary, but in reality it really needed to happen. And I really feel that for me personally, I appreciate that the COVID times were so tragic for a lot of people and it was very difficult. But for me personally, it was what I needed to grow into the person I am today, into Elle that you see now. I probably wouldn't have been brave enough to talk to you right now about everything this openly before, because for fear of being ridiculed and judged, and for fear of the stigma around mental health, around women, around makeup, around everything that I was going through. And I just feel that something very positive came out of that. And going forward, I thought, you know what, there's going to be other women that are going to benefit from this. I can't be the only woman that feels like this, you know. And it's a very natural feeling to have hang-ups. I still have them as well, like most days I'm like, ugh. But it's knowing how to deal with those positively and knowing how to ground yourself and speak to that inner child and speak to that voice that's kind of going, ugh, and say, you know what, no, I don't believe what do you know what I mean? Is that conversation that I didn't have with myself before. And I was hearing these bullies and these people in my head all the time going, oh, you're not good enough. And going into Miss GB, a lot of people will go, well, if you didn't want the validation from people, why did you go into beauty contest? And I have had that a lot, that question. And you know what? My answer will always be the same. What I did was bigger than the competition. It was bigger than Miss GB. It was bigger than that. And you know what? Fair play. People are going to question why I went to a beauty pageant with no makeup on, to say, I don't care what people think. I get that. And their feelings around that are completely valid. But for me, it was about using a platform that is national. It's a big platform. Miss GB, it's one of the, like you said, it was the oldest pageant in the UK. Yeah. Lots of young women and lots of girls follow that pageant, and lots of young girls know about it. And after I announced that I was actually going to do the no makeup in the pageant, I got news agents contacting me. I got loads of cool interviews like this one, and do you know what I mean? And it's still going on. The conversations are still being had a year later, which showcases that what I did needed to happen. And being the first woman to ever do that is an awesome feeling.
Yeah, well, it's inspiring. And just to show that you can be incredibly beautiful as you are without the mask, and incredibly powerful what you just said there, that wearing a mask helped you realize that you didn't need or want the other mask. So incredible lessons learned. So while you didn't want the makeup anymore, you did want the title, and the title you did receive. So what did that do for you personally? What did having, again, even though you weren't seeking the validation, but having that, what did that mean to you? And what do you hope that means for other young women?
So for me personally, it was never about the title. It was about showcasing this stance of choice. So the pageant for me was a stage, and the makeup was just a symbol of choice. And the title, I mean, it came to me, and I was very grateful for it. And having that title meant I could go forward and continue my hard work, because once the pageant finished, that was when the hard work happened. And to be able to contact people and say, I'm Miss GB Publicity, I won this title on the back of all this work I've done in society recently. It gives you that platform that maybe if I was on stage, I'm also a musician, if I'm on stage at a gig saying, hey, I'm wearing no makeup, no one's going to even hear me over the music. So do you know what I mean? And that is it. And like I said earlier, young girls follow Miss GB, and because it's quite a big deal in the UK, I'm sure in the US as well, pageants, it's such a controversial thing to happen. It's on a stage like that. And that kid that was once in school is so proud of me now, because I used all the things that happened to me, I used them for a positive outcome, and I'm helping other people, and I'm becoming that person that I needed when I was there, you know. And that's one thing I've always wanted to do. And for me as well, it's personally to know that I've changed how pageants are looked at, and to know that that was me on my own, on the back of just my own experiences. Yeah, my experiences weren't great, and I wouldn't wish them on anyone. However, I turned it all around, and I used exactly what I wanted out of it. And I said, you know what, my abusers and my bullies, they didn't win. I did, because I didn't stay silent. I told my story on a national platform. I helped so many women, and I had parents and kids messaging me going, thank you so much for reminding me that I'm good enough. And it was just such a small thing, and it was like a ripple effect. And now, you know, I think there's other women that are starting to do it in pageants now. There's a lot of talk in the media around body image, and there's a lot more going on now, I think, especially in these last couple of years. And I'm so grateful to be part of that generation that hopefully will change how that looks. Because growing up, I think me and you are probably a very similar age. Growing up, we had so many magazines and so many negative things told to us as women. Once you're born into this world, I feel like as a woman, you're in danger straight away, and it shouldn't be like that. Absolutely shouldn't be like that. And women's choice is such a strong topic at the moment, and that's why I did it. It was about the choice that I didn't have as a child, the choices that were taken away from me, the choices that were taken away from other women I know, to say, you know what, you've got a choice to do what you want to do with your body, with your face, with what you wear. No one should tell you otherwise. You should feel like, not even brave enough, it's not the word. You should feel confident enough to go out wearing whatever you want, and no one should touch you, should comment on your body, should do anything. That's not okay. And I think now that we are having these conversations, and like I said, a year later, me and you're having this conversation, which is amazing on the back of what I've done. And I'm just grateful that these conversations are continuing, and other women are benefiting from my decision.
Well, I'm so glad that you made that decision.
Thank you.
You know, so let's close out this way. This month is Bullying Prevention Month. So to those who have been bullied, you say, and you've been quoted to say, it's okay to be you. What would you say to the bullies? Because often it is the bullies that need that reminder more than anyone. The hurt that they inflict on others is often a reflection of the hurt they themselves have endured. So my question to you is to these bullies, what is it that you'd like to say?
So I'd like to say, first and foremost, I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry that you went through that as well. However, that's not an excuse to then give that energy to somebody else. I feel like there should be early intervention for everyone, for anyone who's struggling. I feel schools should definitely have more awareness about bullies, the bullied, and what sort of steps they can take to prevent any of that happening, because I do think that it starts very young. I'd also like to say to them that there are people that will help you as well. You don't have to suffer in silence, and reach out, educate yourselves. If you don't understand something, read about it, ask the person that's got frizzy hair or ginger hair or freckles, whatever it is that you're like afraid of to just comment on or whatever. Just ask people, like, that's it. Just ask anyone, and I'm sure they would answer you and they would help you out. And you're 100% right. It is the bullies that almost need more help sometimes than us, the ones that are bullied, because they do get overlooked, because they're, you know, once someone says a bully, you think negatively about them, but actually you're completely right. There are people that have suffered trauma, and this is their reaction to that trauma. However, we're not responsible for their trauma. We're not responsible for their triggers, and they're not responsible for ours. I do think together we need to have that early intervention in place in the whole world to help prevent it to get to that point.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing your journey, and your beautiful face and your beautiful.
We look quite similar. Like, we could be sisters or something. I was thinking that. I was like, we look very. When you came on the screen, I was like, yeah, we look the same. Great.
We are perhaps sisters from other misters. I mean, this is a possibility. Who knows? But I want to just thank you so much, Elle, for sharing your story, for helping all of us become just a bit more aware now. Thank you.